Let's talk a little bit about shoes. We've talked about it a bit at the outset, but I know that it's going to be a topic that anybody who's listening to us right now is going to want to understand, hey, what can I do for myself, presumably as an adult? And I do think there's going to be a lot of people who listen to us who have kids who are going to also say, hey, if I've taken anything away from this, I've taken away the idea that this begins early in life. And therefore, I want to maybe even save my kids some of the challenges I've had. What can I do for them?
Yeah. I love this question. I could talk about shoes for a very long time. If we talk about kids first, I think first and foremost, just let their feet feel the ground as often as they can. All different types of surfaces. There are way more shoe and footwear companies now than there were when I started this whole thing 20 years ago. I think the word is catching on and we're realizing the importance of all of this. With the kids, obviously, and this is with everybody, the toes need to be able to splay. That's a wide toe box for me is a non-negotiable.
And are we defining that by the insert test? Meaning put your foot on the insert and make sure that when your weight is on your foot, you can still see insert?
It's probably the easiest way to, kind of access that. But I will caution you that these companies are getting smarter. I've called all of them pretty much. The last of the shoe, I'll grab a shoe. I have one here. So this is the last of the shoe. Okay. In order to change the last of the shoe, it's very expensive. So what the companies will do is they'll change the upper of the shoe. So they'll put like mesh. So when you go to put your foot in there, it feels like you have all this room, and it's not because the shoe is wider, it's just because they put a material on there where your foot can actually expand in it. And that there's also a very big difference between a wide toe box and a wide shoe. Those are two very different things. A wide shoe, which most shoe companies have, will give you width here, but it will still taper at the toe. And not what we want, right? Because remember the tie bar mechanism. I have to have that forefoot splay to trigger the response of, hey, I better get stable at push off. So that's when I need my toes to be able to splay as well. So a wide toe box is mandatory with kids footwear, adult footwear, whatever.
What are the shoes that have wide? Would that be considered a wide toe box?
Yes. So this is a 0.
Yep.
Okay. I'm a big fan of these shoes. There are so many companies out there right now. Vivo Barefoot, Toeless. I could go on and on and on about those. I have a list of them too.
So we'll put that list in the show notes so that people can sort of see what you would consider wide, shoes that make a wide enough toe box for.
Yes.
For the
and
purposes.
I have them listed according to category, right? Like this is a athletic shoe. This is a casual shoe. We have so many resources for that because it can get very confusing because people will be like, I'm in a wide shoe. I'm like, you're not in a wide shoe. So that's kind of rule number 1. Mm-hmm. The other thing with functional footwear is looking at the heel and the toe, where they sit. So
this is a 0 drop.
This is a 0 drop where the heel and the toe sit on the same plane. Okay. That just makes sense, doesn't it? That's how we were designed to walk. Most shoes, and I won't throw out names here, but most athletic shoes, most running shoes, if you Google the model of the shoe and Google heel to toe drop,
it'll tell you how many millimeters.
It'll tell you how many millimeters the heel is higher than the toe. Anything that's not a 0 drop, by the way, in my world is a high heel.
Interesting.
Right?
Now, I switched my rucking to a shoe that has an 8 millimeter drop. Mm-hmm. Once I was having all of that Achilles tendinopathy, and I have enjoyed that shoe much more. So I no longer ruck in a minimalist shoe, probably because I'm carrying a lot of weight.
Yes.
And I want more cushion. But I don't care about, I'll throw out the brand. I use the Go Ruck shoe.
Okay.
So it is kind of a minimalist shoe. I can show you what I use later. But the reason I bring it up is there's something about having that little bit of drop that's not huge. It looks like a zero drop.
Yeah.
But it's made it, I've never had an Achilles. I've never had pain again since doing that. Is that a mistake?
No, and I think it's such a good conversation to have, right? Think about the whole super shoe, like the Nike Alpha Fly, for example, right? That's like the big craze.
I don't even know what that is.
It's the shoe that has the carbon plate.
Shoe. Oh, okay.
Right?
Oh, is this the super running shoe?
This is the super running shoe.
Oh, yeah, got it. That has that actually gives you a little bit of like, presumably it gives you more energy.
Yes. So there's like certain characteristics to that shoe.
Yep.
It has a carbon plate.
Yep.
It has a difference in the midsole, right? It's basically a shoe, and the research will tell you, gives you a 4% advantage. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, if I'm running in a race and the guy next to me has this shoe that's going to give him a 4% advantage, don't I want to be able to compete with him? Well, of course I do. But I always say you have to earn your right to get into that shoe because it does change things. For example, because it's going to propel you, it might cause you to stride longer. With longer strides, you have to consider hamstring and Achilles possible or potential injuries. So guess what you better be doing? A lot of hamstring strength and a lot of, calf work, for example. It has an additional stack height on it, which can also cause that kind of longer stride. Again, you better be able to handle that. So when you talk about shoes like that, I call them a performance shoe.
Yeah.
Fine. But it's a performance. Save that shoe for icing on the cake.
Yeah.
Your speed workouts.
You have to do the foundational work.
Yes. Because use a training shoe. Get your foot stronger. Give yourself the best possible outcome when you put that performance shoe on. Because if you're just relying on the shoe, I can guarantee you'll probably end up in my office. Because I see it all the time. So with Achilles injuries, for example, now you're adding 50, 60 pounds. Okay. That takes work to be able to handle that amount of load in a minimal shoe, right? If you had a history of, an Achilles tendinopathy, if your baseline capacity isn't where we know it should be, then, if you need to wear that change, there is a time and a place for everything. So if you are going to wear a shoe that has an 8mm heel to toe drop, just do the work when you're out of the shoe. Make sure you have plenty of ankle mobility because what are you doing? You're shortening the posterior compartment. Make sure you're still doing all of your, plantar flexion strength.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's talk about any other characteristics of the shoe. So you've highlighted two. The width of the toe box and the drop.
Yes. Let's talk of the sole.
Yeah.
Right. So this is where I'll give people a little bit of leeway, if you will. So I like to put patients, like I said, number one, wide toe box is non-negotiable. But you will get patients that often, and other doctors have said this to me, well, we weren't designed to walk on man-made surfaces. Okay, fine. But that doesn't mean, nor were we designed to walk with our toes looking like this. Hence, the wide toe box is a non-negotiable. But if you're standing on concrete all day long, if you work in a grocery store, for example, if you're in an airport, having a little bit of cushion underneath the sole of the foot is going to be more comfortable. But this is where you need to consider both ends here. The more stack height on the shoe, okay, so this is the more cushion, it changes the rate of loading. It speeds us through pronation. This is very important. So the more stuff I have, it's going to change the rate of loading. We've been talking about that all morning, how we want to do what to it. We want to slow it down. We want to control it. And now I'm going to put something underneath the foot that's potentially going to speed it up. you better have what? A very strong foot and very strong extrinsic muscles to control that pronation. So, consider what you're doing in the shoe. If you're standing still, fine, right? You want a little bit of cushion, but know that when you start walking with that thing, with this more stack height, with this more cushion, you're going to alter the rate of loading. So that's where the thinner sole can come into play. If you walk with a shoe on that allows you to feel things. Okay, so Steven Sashen owns Zero, and he has this ad that I just love. He's like, I don't wear comfortable shoes, and you shouldn't wear comfortable shoes either. Yeah, I think it's really funny, but he's right, because when we're walking, remember we talked about the calcaneus and how beautifully it's designed it is to handle shock absorption. We also have receptors in the heel that tell us, hey, don't land so heavy because it hurts.
That's such a great point, right? I've seen the ad. I know Stephen well.
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to understand that it's okay for your feet to be giving you a signal.
100%.
I actually, this is totally off topic, but one of the things I'm also interested in understanding better is the importance of negative emotions, right? Like we live in a world where we've become so sterile to this and nobody wants to feel a negative emotion, right? You don't want to feel sad. You don't want to feel anxious. You don't want to feel depressed. You don't want to feel angry. And it's like, understandably, we don't want to feel those things, but there's an opportunity to understand why am I feeling that thing?
Yes.
And if I can understand why I'm feeling that thing, maybe I can get to the root of what's actually going on. And I think that the way you described that made me make that connection, which is, gosh, we should actually think through foot pain. If we're in the right shoe, if we're in a shoe that we deem a correct shoe and something hurts, maybe the signal is telling us, what are you doing wrong?
Right. I mean, it gives us so much information when you can actually feel the ground. I mean, everything, the proprioception, the receptor activity. And when we have a lot of stuff underneath the foot, I can overstride and land really heavy. I'm not going to feel it. That's not what we want. Walking is a grazing of the heel. We want to feel what happens when our heel hits the ground.